Welcome to your deep dive. We're tackling the UK's proposed industrial strategy today. Invest 2035, they're calling it. We're diving into this green paper you sent over, the one that lays out their 10-year plan. It's a bit of a monster, not gonna lie. But should be interesting. You know those articles we discussed about wages stagnating and the UK's productivity, well, slump. This strategy seems to be taking those on head on. It's less a quick fix, more a deep dive into like the DNA of business success or the lack of it, I guess, in this case.
It's really good to see a government really getting into the weeds of, the root causes of these economic issues,
Hmm.
not just slapping a Band-Aid on things, but actually thinking long-term about what businesses need to thrive.
Right, right. No sugarcoating here. The report, it starts by sizing up the UK's economy, the good, the bad, the ugly, as they say. So what's the picture they're painting?
Well, on the plus side, you've got these like world-renowned universities. They're just pumping out amazing research, real hotbed for innovation.
Yeah.
And the startup scene,
Yeah.
especially in tech, attracting serious investment. Oh, and we can't forget London being this global financial hub. That's huge.
Yeah, London, it's like a magnet for global companies, top talent. But the report, it doesn't shy away from, the economic storms the UK's been through recently, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, the UK has had it rough. What Brexit, first of all,
Hmm.
total roller coaster, then the pandemic, like
Yeah.
everything we've ever seen. And now energy prices through the roof thanks to, well, everything happening in Ukraine. It's been one thing after another.
Talk about curveballs.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how the UK adapts in a world that feels like it's changing by the minute.
And that's exactly it. That's what this green paper is getting at. It's about creating this economy that can like roll with the punches, an environment where businesses not just survive, but thrive, even with all this uncertainty flying around.
Speaking of uncertainty, one thing that really stood out to me was the focus on productivity. Or should I say the lack of it? It's like the elephant in the room everyone's finally ready to address.
Yeah, it's a big one. The paper says that productivity growth in the UK, it's been trailing behind other advanced economies, and here's the kicker, this directly hits people's pockets. When productivity's down, wages are down, and that affects, well, it affects everyone's quality of life.
So it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about real people feeling the squeeze. But it seems like the government is serious about, diagnosing the problem before throwing solutions at it, which I guess is a good sign.
Definitely. And they've homed in on a couple of key culprits here. One is low business investment. Compared to similar economies, UK businesses, they're just not investing as much. And that just puts a damper on productivity growth. It's a vicious cycle, really low investment, low productivity, even less incentive to invest.
A real catch-22. What's the other big issue they identified?
The other biggie is the slow adoption of new technologies. You see, the UK, great at invention, but we often stumble when it comes to actually putting those inventions into practice, bridging that gap between like brilliant ideas and real-world application. That's a core challenge this strategy wants to tackle.
It's like having a top-of-the-line kitchen, all the gadgets, but you're still just like microwaving ready meals, right? You've got the tools, but you're not using them to their full potential.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
So we've got this like sluggish economy, low investment, this tech gap. It's a lot. So how do they plan to turn things around? What's the magic bullet?
Well, no magic bullet,
Yeah.
sadly. But one of the key things they're focusing on is specific sectors, the ones they think can really drive growth, get the UK economy moving.
Right, they call them growth driving sectors, if I remember correctly. Sounds very strategic, very targeted.
Totally. And they've zeroed in on 8. Advanced manufacturing, clean energy industries, creative industries, defense. Then you've got digital technologies, financial services, life sciences, and professional and business services. Quite a mouthful.
8 sectors. Covering all their bases, huh? It's like when I tried to, diversify my investment portfolio, a little bit of everything. But really, it's a good mix, right? Traditional strengths, but also those industries of the future.
Exactly. The UK has this like legacy in things like finance, manufacturing, but they also know that future growth, it depends on clean energy, on digital tech, all that.
So it's like play to your strengths, but keep an eye on what's coming next.
I like it. But it's not just about we need more manufacturing, right? They get into the nitty-gritty, the specifics within each sector.
100%. It's not just broad strokes. The strategy really emphasizes finding those niches where the UK has a real edge or where they could develop one. A tailored approach, basically. Because different sectors, they face different challenges, different opportunities, right? No one-size-fits-all solution. This tailored approach, tell me more. What are they actually doing differently? What does it look like?
Well, they're looking at a whole range of policies. Skills and training, big one. Innovation and R&D, obviously. Improving access to capital, to finance, and of course, making regulations more business-friendly, which is always a big one.
Okay, those are all like essential areas, but kind of broad. Can you give me an example, something concrete?
Sure. Take skills, for instance. They're proposing this new growth and skills levy, which basically gives employers more flexibility in how they train their people.
A new levy. Okay. How would that work exactly? How is it different from, past training schemes we've seen?
So in the past, these schemes, they were very rigid, one size fits all. This levy is designed to be more adaptable, more responsive to what businesses in specific sectors actually need. It's about letting employers take the reins, invest in training that makes sense for them, for their specific needs.
Empowering businesses instead of dictating. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It ties into this bigger theme of the whole strategy, which is, make it easier to do business in the UK. Create an environment where businesses invest and grow.
Because, let's face it, you need a skilled workforce to compete, to grow, all of that. Now, you mentioned regulations, streamlining things. That's music to any business owner's ears, am I right? What are some of the biggest pain points they're looking at? How will this actually impact businesses?
Well, one thing they really want to tackle is the administrative burden,
Yeah.
all the paperwork, especially for small businesses.
Mhm.
Simplify tax reporting, make it easier to get permits, licenses, all that jazz. Basically make it less of a headache to navigate government regulations in general.
Cut through the red tape, as they say. Less time filling out forms, more time innovating, creating jobs, right?
Right. Let businesses focus on what they do best, whether it's creating a product or, providing a service, whatever it might be. Just get out of the way and let them drive growth.
Okay, so we've got targeted sector support, skills, a better business environment. It's a start for sure, but, the UK is not just London, right? The report, it acknowledges that not every part of the country has benefited equally from economic growth. What about those left behind?
That's a really important point, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on this idea of unlocking the potential of all regions, not just London and the Southeast. Addressing that north-south divide we always hear about.
It's true. For too long, it's felt like some regions are thriving while others are stuck.
Exactly. So to fix that, the strategy talks about giving more power to local leaders, more autonomy, more resources. Let them drive growth in their own regions, bottom up, not top down.
Local-driven growth, interesting. Quite a shift from how things have been done before. But how will they actually give more power to these regions? What does that look like in practice?
They're talking about these local growth plans. Basically, each region comes up with its own 10-year strategy, tailored to its strengths, its opportunities.
Yeah.
Because what works in Birmingham might not work in Bristol, right?
Makes sense. Each region has its own, its own flavor, its own economic ecosystem. But this only works if the government really lets go, if they trust local leaders to get things done, don't they?
Absolutely. It has to be a real shift in mindset. Less dictating from the top, more collaboration, more trust. Let regions chart their own course.
Like giving each region the tools to build its own economic engine. Now, there's one more thing I want to touch on, clusters. The report talks about how important they are for driving innovation. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. The idea is that businesses, they don't thrive in isolation, right? They need to be part of a dynamic ecosystem surrounded by other businesses, research institutions, skilled workers, you name it. Think like a tech hub.
Like Silicon Valley, right? You've got all these tech companies, venture capitalists, top universities, all in one place.
Exactly. And the closer those connections, the more they can benefit from each other's knowledge, collaborate, all that. So the strategy, it emphasizes supporting these high-potential clusters all over the UK, places where there's already a concentration of activity in a particular sector.
Give me an example, something outside the tech world.
Sure. Think about Cambridge and biotech. You got these world-class universities doing cutting-edge research. Then you've got all these startups developing new therapies. And then, of course, you've got the big pharmaceutical companies providing investment expertise. They all feed off each other, create this really dynamic environment.
A real hive of activity, everyone buzzing around, sharing ideas, pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. And the government gets that. They know that these clusters, these hotbeds of innovation, they're key for future growth, for making sure those benefits are felt more widely across the UK.
So it's about creating the right conditions, those fertile grounds where businesses can connect, collaborate, really thrive. I'm picking up on this theme of, Team UK. It's not something you usually hear in these policy documents. Do you think they can really foster that kind of collaboration?
Yeah, this whole Team UK thing, it's everywhere in the strategy. Collaboration seems to be like the foundation of it all, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It's woven through everything from skills to regional development. It's refreshing, actually. It feels like they get that they can't just, snap their fingers and expect the economy to magically transform.
Right. They're actually asking for input from businesses, universities, communities, everyone. It's not just a top-down thing.
Exactly. It's about bringing everyone to the table. And they've got this pretty interesting mechanism for accountability, the Industrial Strategy Council. That's not just some, talking shop.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds more high level than that. It's meant to be this powerhouse of experts. They'll give advice, sure, but also hold the government's feet to the fire, make sure they deliver on all these promises. It's about making sure the strategy is based on, like, real evidence, long-term thinking, not just short-term political wins.
So it's like having this dedicated team of experts making sure the project stays on track gets real results.
Okay, I'm starting to see why you're cautiously optimistic about all this. It's ambitious, for sure, but there's substance here. They genuinely want to solve these problems, and in a smart way, it seems.
I think so. It's not just about, chasing bigger GDP numbers. They want good jobs, for one. They want every region to benefit. And they want an economy that's built to last, one that can handle whatever's thrown at it. But like any plan, we got to see how it plays out. Grand ideas are one thing. Actual policies, tangible results, that's what matters. Execution, execution, execution. That's always the tricky part, right? But that's where we come in. People like us, engaged citizens, business leaders, we've got a role to play. This deep dive, it's given us the what and the why, the how. That's where we can make a difference.
Exactly. And the Green Paper knows that. They're asking for feedback, for ideas, for concerns. This isn't, set in stone.
It's a two-way street. I like it. So as you're reading through this Green Paper, think about your own work, your own situation. What role can you play? What opportunities do you see? What challenges are maybe being overlooked? Your voice, your ideas, they matter. You can help make this happen.
Time to stop just reading the blueprint and start, actually building the future.
Couldn't agree more. That's a great note to end on.
Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. It's been, well, a lot to process, but really insightful. Now let's go out there and put all this into practice.